Hello, I'm Jake Boudrot, Civic Journalist at Tello Community Television. This week, on The Record, I spoke with former Inverness MLA and former Provincial Cabinet Minister Allan MacMaster about his decision to seek the Conservative nomination in the new federal riding. Just days before he made his announcement, I spoke with MacMaster about plans to change the Port Hastings rotary. The RCMP confirmed that the remains of a missing Richmond County man have been found. I attended the October 30th swearing in of Richmond Municipal Council, where the warden and deputy warden were selected. But first, Premier Tim Houston announced that Nova Scotians will be going to the polls on November 26th. The Premier met with Lieutenant Governor Arthur J. LeBlanc on October 27th to ask that he dissolve the General Assembly and call a general election. Houston said, and I quote, "We encourage all Nova Scotians to get out and vote. This is your chance to build the future of our province." By law, the campaign must be a minimum of 30 days and the election held on a Tuesday. Liberal leader Zach Churchill called it an unnecessary provincial election, which is expected to cost $13 million, money that he said would be better spent in healthcare, housing, or putting more money in people's pockets. Churchill said that a Nova Scotia Liberal government would implement a plan to create a more transparent and open government that works for people, not the Premier. He said it would include 4 key measures, such as establishing an ethics commissioner with order-making powers to ensure that days of pork-barreling politics are a thing of the past. Noting that Houston is breaking his first promise to Nova Scotians by calling a snap election, Nova Scotia NDP leader Claudia Chender said her party is ready to fight for Nova Scotians. The NDP noted that the next election will take place 7 months before the fixed election date of July 15th, 2025, which the Progressive Conservatives set in their first piece of legislation. Instead of addressing the big issues for the people they were elected to serve, Chender said that the Houston government is focused on trying to hold on to power. She said he's timing the election for his own benefit rather than doing what's best for Nova Scotians. With me today is Allan MacMaster, who recently announced his intention to seek the Conservative nomination in the new federal riding of Cape Breton-Canso-Antigonish in the next election. Welcome back.
Thank you, Jake.
So perhaps you can walk us through your decision to leave provincial politics and go into the federal level.
Sure. Well, I was lucky enough, and I'm no longer the MLA now that the election has been called. It was 15 years that people kept sending me back to the legislature, and it's a time that I really enjoyed. I really enjoy helping people. I've worked hard for this area, the constituency of Inverness, and the last 3 years as part of the Houston government. Worked for the entire province, of course, but certainly for the broader region, which is covered by this the new boundaries for the new federal riding of Cape Breton-Canso-Antigonish, and that would be Guysborough, Antigonish, Richmond, Inverness, Victoria, and the part of CBRM going up north from, say, St. Peter's up as far as East Bay and up as far as Lewisburg on the coast. So I certainly have done everything I could in the last 3 years to help out, whether it's volunteer organizations that are doing work on trails or rinks or ball fields or playgrounds. And so I've worked hard to be helpful to the entire region, and now there's an opportunity for me to do the same in Ottawa if people see fit to send me there.
So as you mentioned, you were the MLA for Inverness for 15 years, and at times that riding did include Port Hastings, and then there was a time when it didn't include Port Hastings. Then in 2021, after the Progressive Conservatives took power, Premier Tim Houston named you Deputy Premier and Minister of Finance, among others, and over time you accumulated some other portfolios, including the Communities, Culture, Tourism, and Heritage. You also were the Minister of Gaelic Affairs and a Minister for Labour Relations. So as a result of announcing your intention to enter federal politics, you resigned from cabinet before the election was called on Sunday. Why leave such a powerful position in the provincial government to potentially sit as an MP?
Well, I spent 12 years in opposition in my time in the legislature. And I always wanted to have the chance to serve in government. And I made the most of it. I treated every day with urgency. I worked really hard at it. And I feel that I really maximized the last 3 years. We've got new nursing homes going to be built in Port Hawkesbury and in Cheticamp. We've seen the broader investments in the healthcare system, which is, excuse me, I have a bit of an allergy today with the fall and the leaves coming down off the trees. The broader investments in healthcare, which I really believe the healthcare system was incredibly stressed when we came to government, the government I was a part of. And Premier Houston was laser focused on fixing the healthcare system. And we spent a lot of money to do that. I know in the last budget, we spent 36% more than the previous government had budgeted for in their last budget. So there's been a lot of investment there. A lot of it has been to ensure that, I remember there were 500 nursing home beds that were empty in the province because they couldn't be staffed. And those are all now in service. There's more have been added. And I mentioned the new nursing homes in the area. So we hoped with those investments, we would help people working in the system deal with, not easy to go to work when you feel like you're under-resourced. So I'd say the investments in healthcare were important. It's still important to me and something I want to continue to work on at the federal level because it's really more of a federal issue is cell phone coverage. Telecommunications industry is regulated by the CRTC, and I don't think the regulation of the telecommunications industry has ever done much for people in rural Canada. And the area we live in is certainly part of rural Canada. So, I foresee regulatory changes that could help improve cell phone coverage in this area. As a government, the government I was part of, we made an investment in towers that the government would own, so that it would help to bring other players into the marketplace. Competition is usually good for consumers. Usually it could lead to lower cell phone bills and better service so that every time you hop in your car or move somewhere, you don't lose signal, because we certainly know that's what we have now. So I guess I'm kind of rambling here a bit, Jake, but the reason that I decided to leave such a powerful position is because I believe I made the most of it when I was here, when I was in it. And change is okay. I love what I do, and I hope I can continue to do it. It's really going to be up to the people of Inverness and now the broader area of Richmond and the rest of the Victoria, Antigonish, Guysborough, and the area of CBRM that I mentioned to you earlier. It's going to be up to them if they want me to keep working for them, because I'm happy to do it. I enjoy it, and I will work hard to help better the area.
Do you think, or do you believe you are a strong candidate to be a federal cabinet minister, given your experience at the provincial level?
I would say that's up to whoever looks upon me. I certainly have some experience. And I've always worked hard at it, and experience helps. And I think even my time in opposition is important too. It's not easy in opposition, but you can still be effective if you're able to work on an issue that matters to people. It's hard for the government to say no to it. And I think about probably the one that got the most attention and the one that was most heartfelt for me was working with the survivors of Fenwick Macintosh to get the limitation of actions changed. And the government was saying, no, we can't do that. And they were saying, we have to only allow people 2 years. If they were assaulted or abused, and it's more than 2 years ago, well, too bad for them. They should have come forward earlier. But I knew from working with those survivors and talking to others that oftentimes people will take the secret of abuse with them right to the end of their life. And it's certainly, it's up to them whether they're able to come forward. And sometimes they come forward years later and they feel they can tell somebody they trust. And I thought, they should have the right, even if it's years later, to pursue the person that abused them or assaulted them. And so anyway, I think we made a compelling case because while the government voted my motion down to make the change, the very first day of the next sitting, they passed it unanimously in one day, the same motion. So it was their motion, but it accomplished the same thing. So I would like to say, if anybody is watching from Ottawa, if they're considering me for something like that, I've always tried to be effective in whatever role I'm in, whether I was in opposition or whether I served in cabinet. And I never let whatever position I was in limit my thinking on what I could do for this area, because you shouldn't. You should always do your best. And that's my goal.
Now, in the statement you released when you announced your decision, you pointed to, and I quote, the strong potential of a government change in Ottawa, end quote. How confident are you that the Conservatives can take power federally?
Well, from talking to people on the street, there's definitely an appetite for change. I think a lot of people feel the government in Ottawa right now is out of touch. I think the carbon tax is probably the most prime example. If you are concerned about the environment, the carbon tax is not reducing the consumption of gasoline in this province. In fact, despite the price going up, more gasoline is being purchased per capita today than before the carbon tax was added. And I was looking at the gas pump yesterday when I was filling up, and I was thinking, it was about $1.50, 50 something, and it would be if the carbon tax wasn't there, it'd be about $1.30 right now, because it's 23 cents per liter, and it's going to go up every year. So I really think that's a policy from a government that is out of touch with the average person, and that's what I'm hearing from people. And that's something that I know the Conservative Party will get rid of if people vote for me in this area and send me to Ottawa along with a number of others. We'll get rid of that carbon tax.
Now, in the statement you released when you announced your decision, you talked about the work that remains to be done. And one thing you mentioned is healthcare. Given that it's largely a provincial responsibility with federal funding, how can you make a difference in healthcare if elected in the new federal riding? Wouldn't you make a bigger difference around the provincial cabinet table on that issue?
Well, I think one of the things I've seen from the federal government is a desire to kind of do their own initiatives around healthcare. Like the federal government gives a very large transfer to each province, specifically for healthcare. And generally, historically, they've let the provinces run the healthcare system. And the province largely does. But I've seen initiatives recently, and I think the thinking behind them is good. But if they're doing something for children to be able to go to the dentist, for instance, or pharmacare and things like that, I think it would be better if provinces were running those programs. In fact, they already are. We have a children's dental program in the province here in Nova Scotia. And, so you're right, healthcare is largely provincial and should be run at the provincial level, I believe. And certainly principles of healthcare can be attached to the funding given to the provinces. But healthcare is still a big issue no matter what level of government you're in. And both levels of government play their role in it.
Mm-hmm. Now, well, I'm sure you're well known in Inverness County and Port Hawkesbury, being that was part of the riding you represented for 15 years. Do you feel you need more visibility in other parts of the riding, like the parts you discussed earlier, Richmond County, Antigonish County, Guysborough County, Victoria County, and those areas of the CBRM that are in that federal riding?
Well, I do know lots of people all around the area. I spent some time in Antigonish when I went to university. Even little things like playing in the Tiger Mackey hockey tournament, you get to know people from other parts of the region. Um, and over the years, I've always been out. True, I try to focus time in my own constituency of Inverness, and it is big. And there's a lot of, volunteer fire departments and a lot of community festivals and so on. So even to get around Inverness is a full-time job, I can tell you that. But I've certainly been visible in other parts of this federal riding. I think what I'd like to say is I really believe in this new riding. We have a lot of shared interests. In Inverness, we've got a lot in common with Antigonish, very similar cultural connections. St. FX University, of course, for the whole region, historically and still to this day, was the place where people, working people who worked in the fishery or in farms or in forestry, if they could send their children to university, it was St. FX, and St. FX historically was really focused on that. That was its purpose originally. So we've got a lot of natural connections, and you look at the healthcare system and the education system back when there were school boards in the province. They were often this area of Antigonish, Inverness, Guysborough, Richmond, and so on. So yeah. So I got a little guy coming in here to play basketball. You'll have to. I think he's leaving now.
That's quite all
Sorry.
right.
Yeah.
That's quite all right.
Mhm.
So as you know, Premier Houston just called an election in Nova Scotia for November 26th.
Mhm.
And you left the provincial scene, but in your statement when you announced your decision to run federally, you mentioned, and I quote, "I will do my best to help elect a PC candidate in Inverness to be part of Premier Houston's team," end quote. How do you plan on doing that when you're also preparing to run for a nomination, which I assume the meeting hasn't been set yet, but is probably coming soon?
Well, it's a busy time, but I'm no stranger to that in my life. I've got young children, and certainly had a lot on my plate as when I served in the cabinet. I had a lot of portfolios, so I try to stay organized. I work really hard, and I try to make the most of my time. Um, I certainly, having run 4 provincial elections, will have something to offer whoever wins the nomination tonight. It's being held in Waikagama, and certainly will do what I can to help there. And but you're right, I have to win a nomination. If I don't win that nomination, I can't go any further. So I am focused on that, number one.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. As I mentioned, you're a busy man, and I appreciate you making time for me and talking to our viewers about your decision. And once again, I appreciate your availability. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome, Jake.
With me today is Allan MacMaster. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we received a press release recently from the provincial government, and in the press release, the province said design work is complete and a tender will be issued in the coming weeks for intersection upgrades in Port Hastings to connect Highway 104, Highway 105, Trunk 4, and Route 19. So I guess it must be gratifying or satisfying to get to this point after the, some changes in design plans, budgets, as well as like timelines for construction that occurred over the past few years.
Yes, this is something that people have been waiting for, and I'm really glad that it's finally here. It's going to take some time to build it, but what's taken the time to get us to this point is the original design they were looking at was just a circle. It didn't include all these measures that are in this new design that will help to address the traffic problems that happen when that swing bridge is open, when there's a boat going through at the causeway.
Now, Nova Scotia Public Works said construction is expected to begin early this winter and be completed in late 2028. Sorry. How solid is this timeline, or is this fluid?
Well, I can't say for sure, as one never knows, but it is quite a ways away, 2028. What I can tell you is that this project, because this is a major interchange and it has to function throughout the construction of the new roundabout, it's going to take longer because they're going to have to do it in phases. When they complete one phase, then they can incorporate that into the temporary system for getting through the area. Then they work on another phase. So if it was a greenfield site and it was just a flat piece of ground, this thing could be built a lot more quickly. But they're dealing with limited real estate. They're dealing with a pretty significant hill that goes up if you're going towards Waikagama on the highway. And you've got the swing bridge, you've got that dynamic, you've got the train tracks nearby, and you've got to keep this thing functioning. And there's a lot of traffic going through there every day. So it will take a while, but I think the wait will be worth it, is my hope. Because if we can solve those traffic issues for people, and also while improving the safety, then I think the people will be well served with this new piece of infrastructure.
So Public Works said the total project costs will be released once the tender process is complete and the project is funded under the current major highway construction budget. Are you able to give an idea of what the projected estimated project cost is right now?
Well, we would have a number in mind, but it's not something we would want to share because whoever is going to bid on this project, we want to see what they think it's going to cost. And so until the bids are received and until a winning bidder is chosen, we'll wait until then. And at that point, we can share with the public what the bid was and what the cost will be to complete the work.
So the Public Works said it needs to acquire additional land for this project, which the department described as an ongoing process. And I quote, where is this land they're talking about and how much land are we talking about?
Well, people may be interested to see the actual design, and it's I've posted it on my Facebook page, and you can see that it is coming from Port Hawkesbury into the roundabout area. It is going to take out the former Sky Motel. I think that's what a lot of people refer to as. I know it existed as something after the Sky, but I think a lot of people remember it as the Sky Hotel. It's going to move on that side of the water side of the existing highway there. And so there's going to be quite a bit of land taken up there. Also, above the roundabout in the motel, I think it used to be Keddy's. That's a long time ago. Community of Port Hastings to be able to enter and exit. It's going to be coming through the motel there. It currently has a red roof. People may recognize it as such. There's other places as well, but those are the more significant ones. Some people have seen work already with the storage lane that goes from the existing rotary down to the swing bridge. Some of that work has been completed already. And there is still, if you look at this site, it's restricted in the real estate that's available just by the realities that are around it. But those would be the main areas that I could share with you that are required for the footprint to complete what this roundabout will eventually become.
That is interesting, what you were talking about there.
Mm-hmm.
So Public Works said the new intersection design will keep vehicles from blocking the intersection when drivers cannot cross the causeway when it's open to marine traffic. I know you have in the past, but perhaps you can explain how this will work.
So the big thing we can do to help with traffic is for those that are staying on the island, say they're going from Port Hawkesbury up Route 19 or vice versa, or say somebody's coming from anybody that's staying on the island, the idea is to be able to keep them moving. And if they can keep moving, then they don't become part of the traffic jam. So for people going across the swing bridge, they've got to stop. They've got to wait for the boat to go through. But if those traffic jams are smaller, then they will clear more quickly and create less disruption for people who are trying to get to where they're going.
Now, the project will include a bridge over Trunk 4 and a new sidewalk system so pedestrians can access local businesses without having to cross Highway 105. How important is the pedestrian aspect of this project?
Well, I think what they've come up with, it should be safe. To look at this and to know, if you've driven through this, you would think I would want to be very careful trying to walk and traverse through the existing rotary. But the new roundabout is, while it looks complicated from the aerial views that people can see of it right now, I think when it's built, it'll be easier for people to digest. They'll be making a decision at each point that they're not going to have to make all the decision points at once, which is what you might feel like when you're looking at the overhead view of what the roundabout will look like. So the pedestrian access is important. I mean, the fact is, this is a major interchange. It is right smack dab in the middle of a community in Port Hastings. So the pedestrian access is necessary, and I think they've put some thought into making sure that people can stay connected, whether they want to go to the post office. There's a church right in the middle of this. Of course, we have the fire station, and they don't just respond to emergencies. They also have fundraisers like bingo and other events. And you've got the visitor information center that will continue to operate in its existing location. And you have the Port Hastings, the Strait Area Museum that will continue to operate. So people need to be able to access all of those things. And we're mindful that people are living here, and we want this new roundabout to feel like that they can still live in their community and get around without having to hop in the car.
So Public Works mentioned that travel to and from Cape Breton will be safer with better access points, as you mentioned. And as we were talking earlier, it's no longer going to be a rotary. It's going to be a roundabout or series of roundabouts. So maybe you want to talk about the configuration of the roundabout system, I guess.
Yes, I think people are starting to get used to roundabouts in this province. And because we've seen a lot of rotaries replaced with roundabouts. And the challenge that presents is when somebody comes to the existing rotary, they may think and assume that the rules are like that of a roundabout, but they are not, because it's a rotary, and you really have to pay attention to the signage. And someone told me the other day, I don't know if this is true or not, but even Google Maps has it noted as a roundabout currently. So for that reason, I really think it's important that it become a roundabout, and so that wherever you're traveling in the province, you're not being met with a different, an interchange with a totally different set of rules. So this will be a roundabout, and it will be very clear at each point that you have to make a decision whether you have to get in the correct lane if you're going to stay on island, or if you need to get in a lane to get off the island and so on, or whether you're coming into the roundabout itself and you're trying to decide, well, which area am I going to come off? Signage is going to be very important, but at least it'll be very clear. And I think what we have now is, I think a lot of people would agree that it doesn't feel safe, and change is needed.
I really appreciate you making time for us. I know you're a busy person, and it's much appreciated on this end.
I'm always glad to, Jake. Thank you for the opportunity.
The RCMP confirmed that the remains of Derek Kruger have been found. In a press release issued on October 25th, Nova Scotia RCMP said the 78-year-old man who was reported missing from Port Hastings on October 3rd, 2023, has been located deceased. The RCMP said Kruger's remains were found by a hunter in a wooded area in Greenfield, Colchester County, close to where his abandoned vehicle was parked. Although the investigation is ongoing, the RCMP added that Kruger's death is not believed to be suspicious in nature. The RCMP said Kruger was last seen at a gas station in Antigonish on September 29th, 2023. Port Hawkesbury RCMP said Kruger was reported missing to them on October 3rd. On October 4th, at around 6:10 a.m., Colchester County District RCMP responded to a report of an abandoned vehicle in Greenfield. The RCMP said their officers determined that the vehicle belonged to Kruger and was first observed in the area on September 30th. The RCMP said Colchester Ground Search and Rescue was called in, and a search of the area continued until around 10 p.m. By October 7th, The search for Kruger was suspended. The RCMP sent 13 ground search and rescue teams from Colchester, Pugwash, East Hants, Spring Hill, Halifax Regional, Musquodoboit Valley, West Hants, Eastern Shore, Sheet Harbour, Strait Area, Valley, Lunenburg, and Pictou County conducted an extensive search over 100 kilometers in the Greenfield area. Inverness County District RCMP said in a press release issued on December 14th, 2023, that investigators followed up on several tips. With the election results from the October 19th municipal election now official, Richmond municipal councillors took the oath of office at the municipality's administration building in Ayrshire on October 30th. After the swearing-in ceremony, which was administered by Judge Laurie Halfpenny Macquarie, councillors selected District 5 councillor Brent Sampson as deputy warden, beating out former warden Amanda Mumbercat for the position. Before the deputy warden vote was taken, District 2 councillor Lois Landry was selected as Richmond's next warden, receiving more votes from councillors than Mumbercat, who served 4 years in that role in the last council term. Congratulations, Lois. You were just voted warden of the municipality. I guess what's your reaction?
Oh, absolutely. First and foremost, grateful for the faith that councillors have put in me. And that goes back to faith that I'm so grateful for in terms of voters and residents from District 2 who have put their faith in me first and foremost. So I'm looking forward to the challenge. I enjoy municipal affairs in general, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what great things we are going to accomplish here in Richmond in the next 2 to 4 years.
So tomorrow you guys have an organizational meeting, at which time you guys are going to be choosing who sits on certain committees and things of that nature. I assume you expect that that's going to go pretty smoothly, and everybody who's supposed to sit on the committees and all that stuff. And then after that, it's going to be kind of on to your next council meeting and getting ready for that, I suppose, too.
Right. So kudos to previous council and particularly staff who have really done a nice job of figuring out what committees councillors sit on and how the warden plays into that. So there are some that require the warden's presence. And I think it's really important for councillors to be able to sit on committees that interest them. So if you have an interest in a particular topic or a connection to something, aside from any conflicts of interest, I think it's great for councillors to sit on that. So this organizational meeting is actually in recess. So the warden was chosen, the deputy was chosen, we're now in recess, and we will we'll resume that organizational meeting tomorrow at 10, and we'll hash through that matrix and get those committees, agency boards, committees, and commissions all assigned. And then, the first meeting will be the committee of the whole that will take place. So as residents know, we have the committee of the whole is the second Monday, Tuesday if there's a holiday. So I think that's actually the case this time. I think it'll be the 12th of November, our first committee of the whole meeting, and then the fourth Monday of the month will be our first council meeting. So looking forward to that. And already folks have been really careful about, listen, we need to make sure there's a smooth transition so that change in the warden position, change in deputy warden, change in 2 councillors out of 5 does not result in any missed time or steps that get missed. So it's a really smooth transition, and very grateful for staff and council for that.
Now, after the organizational meeting and before the committee of the whole, I assume is there some type of training or some kind of you guys got to kind of bone up on the rules and things that you need to know?
For sure. November is a very busy month, so several of us will be headed to Halifax for the 4th and the 5th of November, so I believe that's Monday, Tuesday. And I've seen the agenda. It looks really engaging. It looks like there's quite a bit on things you would expect, so rules of order and that kind of thing, but also the new code of conduct for councillors, and different things that are happening in municipalities around legal issues. And then later on in the month, I want to say Monday the 25th, so I think it's the 26th through the 29th, so the rest of that week is the fall meeting of the Nova Scotia Municipality, or Federation of Municipalities, NSFM. So those are some super exciting sessions. So there's lots on topics around community economic development, and there's an AGM on how the NSFM actually functions, and some resolutions that mix that up a little bit. And that gives us a chance to kind of get to know some of our other municipal partners. Interesting that the first day of it is November 26th, which is election day. So there's lots on the agenda about how we're going to be speaking to the minister of such and such. Not sure what that's going to do, but it'll certainly give us an idea of how we interface with our federal and provincial partners.
So District 5 Councillor Brent Sampson was elected Deputy Warden, and I assume you know Brent, I guess, somewhat, or you've so become familiar with him in your work through council, sitting on committees and that. So I assume you're confident that you guys will have a good relationship and he can serve capably as Deputy Warden? First, any one of the 5 of us could serve as warden on any given minute of any given day. This is a really deep bench and a really skilled group of people. The warden position is for 2 years, and 2 years from now we regroup and we revisit that. And so this mandate is for 2 years for the warden, but it is only one for the deputy warden. And you know, I think there's some opportunity for us to discuss the role of the deputy warden and maybe expanding that, but there is not a single person who wouldn't have made an excellent warden or excellent deputy. So District 4 Councillor Amanda Mumbercat served the past 4 years as warden, and maybe get your reaction to the time that she spent in the chair and what things she was able to do.
I wouldn't have enough time to talk about all the wonderful things that Amanda was able to accomplish. And I think what Amanda will go down in history as is being cognizant of the fact that this was a municipality that had 10 councillors. And then it went to 5. And truly, I think that transition from 10 to 5 was rough. And I think that there was a number of committees, and you were asking 5 people to stretch themselves in a way that 10 had before. So I think the previous council, with Amanda's leadership, was able to really develop some pretty significant policies around how committees function, how warden and council interact with those committees. So first and foremost, I would say that I really do believe that forever and a day, the municipality will function better, because that transition to 10, from 10 to 5, is not really a criticism of the council before that. I think people didn't appreciate how much that really changed the workings. And so kudos to the last council for doing that. I think too, Amanda Mumbercat is somebody who, just by virtue of her background in community economic development and also her work at the community college, has been a real champion for growth in Richmond County, and I think we're going to see the benefit of that in the next, not just 2 years, not just 4 years, but in the next 30 years.
So coming up in these at least next 2 years, with you in the warden chair, there's going to be a number of issues that you guys are going to have to tackle. I know one of the things was housing and affordability, and things of that nature. Healthcare, even though it is a provincial responsibility, it does end up falling in the municipal sphere at times too, and those are among other issues. So what do you see as the big issues you guys are going to have to tackle now, and what do you think might be emerging later on?
So I think if I look at this in broad strokes, I think the broad answer to that is that growth is a wonderful thing, but it is change, and change comes with some growing pains. And so we've seen in neighboring municipalities the challenges that come with growth. So you mentioned housing. That is exactly one of the issues we're going to need to be really cognizant about. So we need to recognize as well that there are folks who are really eager to see that growth, and there are people who are really cautiously optimistic, and in some cases really nervous about the prospect of those changes. So I think what council is going to have to do is navigate a lot of those difficult conversations, and to be truthful, that's really why I was eager to put my name forward. I think one thing that people would say about me is that in my previous roles, I've had to navigate some pretty challenging situations. If you have ever been to a school closure meeting, you'll know what I mean when I say that. And so I have a lot of experience helping folks and getting us through the process of really emotionally charged, sensitive situations. And so that's what I hope to bring to the council table is an ability to help us cope with growth and help navigate our way through that, encourage growth, but what are the ways that we make sure that all of our residents are feeling included in that progression?
Well, again, congratulations, Lois, District 2 Councillor Lois Landry. I appreciate you making time for me, and best of luck in the years ahead as warden.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Please tune in again to find out what we will be talking about on The Record.